Iawn Carla, agus Sedlam Rose, ará dúspáir a gúil mé taú leis an bille an boards gan an na Héireann an lasú 2018 mas an gúil sé tábhad a gneanamid cosint ar an inéistíocht atá déanta go dtí seo ag muintir na Héireann gnó scanan a dhéanamh agus gúil sé tábhad a gneanamid leanúnta sin agus denmh cinnte de go mbeadh inéistú ó cólachtaí las muid a Héireann agus cólachtaí in Éireann in san gnó seo ach go háirithe. Is cuilim nuair a togh mé ar dúspáire go raibh ceist mór faoi díreach an rud atá faoi chabalú a gin seo section 481 agus an faoiseamh a bhí le fáil acu agus go raibh seansamh ag an am agus tamil fada de blianta hin a bhí mise tofa go raibh seansamh ag an am go raibh daintear ann go mbeadh muid a fáil réig leis agus is ceanna na cinethe maith den ag an am ná gur tugadh cosanta agus gur chorú leis ó hin agus an neomh tá muid ag déanamh iireacht chor leis na féidireachtaí in gnó na scanánaíochta ach go háirithe chun déanamh cinnte de go gcuirlimid leis an billiún euro luach a d'eirtear go chorú le Éireann 2016 agus go bhfuil a lán fostathe agus aithníonn mé go Éireann na tuairiscí mada leis an gnó seo in Éireann go bhfuil beagnach 17,000 duine fostathe sin cad a déir na tuairisc ní creidimid agus tuach mé ar ais chuig an ábhar sin níos déanaí in san méid tal arágam. The film industry is obviously a very important part of the cultural and artistic and economic life of Ireland, and we have huge potential in terms of location, in terms of creativity, artistic endeavour, and also all of the other skill sets that many within the film industry, some who have been shut out of the film industry, can contribute to the film industry in the future if allowed. And this piece of legislation is welcome in so much as we're ensuring that we can compete. When I was first elected, the danger was that if we got rid of section 481 is that we would allow other countries to steal a march on us. I don't think we've managed to make as much benefit from, if you want, the state's investment in the film industry, because that's what 481 does, is an investment by virtue of the fact that we have encouraged foreign companies and Irish companies to invest, and that they get a tax benefit accordingly. But when you have an industry such as this, there are always concerns, there's always going to be problems, there's always going to be issues. And I will propose an amendment at committee stage that we come back to this, not just in passing this legislation, but that we come back to it with a report, specifically in terms of the terms and condition of workers. As I mentioned, the most recent report that I've seen is an economic analysis of the audiovisual sector in Ireland. That suggests that we're supporting an employment of nearly 17,000. In all of my dealings with people who work at various ends of the film industry, whether it's the carpenter, the security man, those who drive the cars, trucks, stuntmen, directors, or those who are involved in polishing, if you want, the finished product so that we can see it. They say that sometimes the calculation of those who are engaged in the film industry is skewed, because sometimes people work twice or three times in a year, or they're accounted 2 or 3 times in the accounts, because they work for different companies as different films or different opportunities come up, and they're recorded as working full-time. So they might work for 6 months for this company, 3 months for the other, and maybe a month, because there's often gaps and quite long gaps in between, and they're down as recorded as kind of having worked 3. That's 3 people employed. So it is a concern. There's also huge concerns about those who aren't recorded. Kind of, there are many who serve indefinite internships without pay, still to this day. There are those who are titled trainees who don't have an end date as trainees, and I don't know whether all of the trainees are accounted as full-time personnel in terms of the film industry. So there is a job of work to be done in relation to how many exactly are working at a given time. And then we can properly assess the value of our contribution to the film industry here and abroad. There's also queries in relation to whether we're getting the full value out of our facilitation of the film industry, that in some ways some of the criteria could be tweaked, or some of the application forms can be tweaked in such a way as that there may be more foreign money coming in and spent in terms of film production, but sometimes that it goes askew via Irish-based companies, because for a foreign film company, I'm told, to avail of this, they have to have an Irish producer or an Irish address or whatever, and that sometimes the cost of going through some of the Irish companies can be greater than if they were directly employing staff or recruiting them. They're issues that have been raised with me. I'm not saying that this is a fact, but because I can't contradict what has been said to me, I think it is key that some of these issues are addressed. There is the whole aspect of terms and condition, so that when you are on a shoot, if you start at 8 o'clock in the morning and the shoot's to go on till 6 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock the director decides to continue filming till 10 o'clock that night, do you get paid? Well, what I've been told is, in fact, you don't. And you don't get overtime. And if you complain, you won't be on the next set or in the next film, and you become blacklisted, because we're a small island. It's a small industry, and it's very, very easy to identify those who are malcontents. And it's not, obviously, the actors, but those who, well, it might be the actors as well, but it's those who provide kind of a lot of the real work in terms of, and again, I'm not suggesting that acting isn't the real work, but in terms of the heavy lifting of creating sets, or kind of transporting people to or from, the health and safety people, all of those without whom the actors wouldn't have a stage in which to be involved in, or a location. Sometimes they are the ones who are left kind of still working long after the producer has gone to bed and whatnot. So there are many aspects of the industry, and I know that the Committee on Arts, Culture, or Arts Heritage and the Gaeltacht has looked at this, and that even subsequent to that, there has been quite a number of issues raised with members of the committee, with those who took part in producing that report, and with others of us who have an interest and have always had an interest, and who those organisations which are involved in the film industry would like to see changes, and we need to have a forum in which to listen to those. But also we need, kind of similar to every other industry in Ireland, to have the ability to ensure that action is taken, and if action isn't taken, that we have the legislation to protect this class of worker in Irish society. One of the other big issues, and it's not directly related to the content of this bill, but it is a bill which is dealing with the Irish Film Board, is the fact that many of those who are involved in the film industry, as I said earlier, are temporary workers. And it's how the Department of Social Protection treat those workers, how they account for them, and kind of the difficulty quite a lot of people have had with the department, because whether it's the local social welfare inspector or whether they have been diverted to the private companies who are now supposed to seek full-time work for them, and that there is difficulty often for those who are awaiting the next production, and there can be a number of months between productions. There is very few in the film industry go from one production into the other in a seamless transition during the year. So there are downtimes, and I think the Department of Social Protection should be given the benefits to Ireland in terms of the profile we get from all of the films and documentaries and dramas that are produced here, should be mindful of that, and that they look at treating those who are involved in the film industry, who can justifiably show that they're involved, whether they're in equity or whether they're in one of the unions that deal with those who work in the film industry, so that they're recognised as genuinely working for the various producers in Ireland. And then, as I said, the Department of Social Protection as well, who have looked at issues to do with internships and that, is that they look properly at whether there is a proper internship structures within the film industry, that there's no abuse of people, that there's no charging of young people to be on set because they wish in the future maybe to be part of the film industry, and that the proper rates of pay are given, that the proper hours are also given. And there is an understanding by everybody within the trade that yes, sometimes shoots go over, sometimes you need to sit or act late into the night to finish off a shoot. But there is also the compensation for those additional hours, and in any part of employment, that is usually taken as overtime rather than as having to do it for little or nothing. And some of that pertains to the content of this bill, is because to keep costs down, the companies who are involved in some of the big shoots in this country will not spend over what they have budgeted for, even if that means that the workers are left at a shortfall, or sometimes their disregard for the workers in the industry is wrong in total. There is no HR mechanism, there's no grievance mechanism. So if you have a grievance within the industry, who do you go to? Who do you call if you want? You obviously can go through your union, but given that there are set companies set up to do a specific film, by the time your grievance is heard, that shoot or that film is completed and gone and aired in some occasion, and your grievance is still floating in cyberspace sometimes. The main issue today is obviously that we want to be seen to promote Irish film, and I think there has been an absolute Écht as Gaeilge, which is kind of, a tremendous bit of work done over the recent times in terms of what Ireland has produced. I think we could produce a lot more. I think we should kind of, given our history and our creativity, I think we've shown that we can tell stories, we can act stories, and we can sell our stories through film to the best in the world. And I think there needs to be a greater concentration on homegrown films rather than depending on the big film companies to come into the country. They haven't, in the main, come in. So even though people were lauding how great it was that Star Wars kind of was filmed in Ireland, well, it was a very minuscule part, albeit very attractive and very beneficial to our tourism industry on the West Coast. The whole film, the whole production was not filmed or edited in Ireland, and the same can be true of. It's probably true of every single film around the world. They don't do it in one location from start to finish, and I think the recent changes in terms of locations and studios will probably attract more and bigger productions. But we also need to ensure that the terms and conditions of all of those involved in the industry are protected, but also that our investment is protected and that there's no one element within the system which can avail of Section 481 or abusing it in any way, that nobody is making a killing for themselves while at the same time workers aren't fully paid, while we struggle with many other aspects of our economy where we need to address kind of all of the other issues such as health, social welfare, housing, and that. We don't want to kind of that some people, as always seems to happen, some people abuse tax reliefs for their own benefits. This tax relief was set up specifically to attract companies to Ireland, specifically to enhance our homegrown industry and to ensure that we had first-class opportunities for all of those involved in the film industry and in making dramas and documentaries. And I think we've proven that we're capable of matching the best in the world. But just I'll raise those concerns. As I said, it's a short period kind of to get amendments. I think we have till 11 o'clock tomorrow morning to put amendments together before we come back to this next week. I don't intend in any way, if I haven't formulated those, to delay the passage of this bill, but I just want to make sure that it is stated that I won't tolerate, my party won't tolerate some of the abuses that I have heard in recent weeks, which have gone on, and some of which I was aware of before now through friends and colleagues who work in the industry, and which we've raised in the past in this House. So there is an onus on the Minister not just to get this piece of legislation through, but to act on some of the points that I've raised and possibly other deputies will raise later on, to make sure that kind of the industry is a fair industry and that we get the best in many senses out of it. Burton, please.